Hi, so today I wanted to film a video about answering the question, what is trichotillomania? So I have actually filmed this video in the past, quite early on in my Instagram account, so not too long ago, but I rewatched it to share last night and I was cringing a lot because every third to fourth word was and I've recently tried to train myself out of doing that, so I thought rather than rely on that video where I can't even watch it myself because, like I say, it's just all the time. I thought I would re-record it. If you can see kind of like a ghostly figure here, it's because I've got a crack in my camera, my front camera. It's really annoying and I can't replace my phone for months, so that's really annoying. And also my cat's just woken up, so he'll be in the video as well. So to stop rambling on, what is trichotillomania? So trichotillomania, I made the joke last time, it's the longest word in the human language. It's actually not, but it's so long and people can never pronounce it. It took me years to be able to say it, and I've had it since I was 14. And I actually read somewhere that it was developed by a scientist in the late 1800s, and the word trich means hair, and then tilla means something else, and then mania is obviously madness, which I think annoys me most of all. And the cat's about to knock the camera off. So just to reiterate, the fact that trichotillomania has mania in it, if you've got trich, it doesn't mean that you are manic or mad. It's just a very old-fashioned phrase, unfortunately, but we're still using it today. So trichotillomania is an impulse control disorder, which means the person who suffers with it gets an almost uncontrollable urge to pull hair from anywhere on their body. For me personally, I just pull from my scalp, but other people pull from their eyelashes and their eyebrows a lot, but it can be anywhere on the body, like I said, but they're the most common places. It becomes almost uncontrollable. Obviously there are ways to control it, but I think one of the misconceptions is, why don't you just stop doing it? And if it were that easy, it wouldn't even be a disorder in the first place. People don't do this because it's something that they want to have. It's because it's something that they can't control and it's really difficult. It affects more women than men, or at least more women have come forward about it than men. So for every 10 women that have it, there is one man. Though I don't want that to skew anything. If you're a man watching this and you have it, obviously it's just as valid for you, and please keep watching this video. It just seems to affect more women than men, and it affects 1 to 2% of the population. So if you think about the fact that you have, say, 100 plus Facebook friends, in theory, 1 or 2 of those people will have some form of trichotillomania, which is really strange for me to think about, and I used to think those figures can't be right. But since, I guess, coming out with it and telling people in the last month or so, I've realised that actually people do suffer with it or have suffered with it in their lives more than you realise. Some people don't even realise they've had it, or they didn't think about it because they stopped very quickly after a year or so, but it affects more people than you'd think. It can be classed as an OCD, so it's definitely under the umbrella term of body focused repetitive behaviours, which is BFRB. Other body focused repetitive behaviours include things such as dermatillomania, which is skin picking, but there are lots of different kinds, and it is an umbrella term to cover things like that, and trich comes underneath that. And a lot of people think it's some form of OCD. Maybe not for every person that has trich, but personally, to me, it does feel like an obsessive compulsive disorder. So I personally feel like it is an OCD for me, though you may not feel like it's an OCD for you. Symptoms basically are just literally just pulling hairs or pulling at hairs from your body, anywhere in your body, like I say, most commonly from the scalp or eyelashes or eyebrows, over a continued period of time. I don't know if there's a set amount, maybe to 6 months to a year, but enough for it to be noticeable, I guess, and often causing hair loss. But not always, some people do it so little that it's not noticeable. So some triggers include things such as emotional states. So they actually think that it's to do with stimulation. So I very cruelly kicked my cat out because he's knocked my camera over twice now. So where was I? So yeah, they think it's to do with stimulation, so you can do it when you're bored and you're understimulated, or if you're overstimulated and you're anxious, and you'll do it to reduce that level. That seems to be the most common theory, though there might be other reasons that you do it as well. For me, I have generalised anxiety disorder and I am anxious a lot of the time, so I do think mine is related to anxious feelings, and you can feel anxious when you're bored. I think there's a misconception that boredom's like a devoid of feeling, but it's not. It's a mixture of different things like frustration and anger and things like that. So causes. So there's no one set cause for a trichotillomania. There's known it can be caused by many different things, and I know this because I personally feel like mine was triggered by trauma of bullying, as I've talked about in previous videos in the past, but I know other people who've had it who haven't experienced trauma and still have it anyway. So that's one of the potential causes. A good way to deal with anxiety, so if you're an anxious person generally, that might just be a cause. They think it might be something to do with a chemical imbalance in the brain, and often it can be triggered at puberty. So for me, I started when I was 14, probably around the time I was going through puberty. So I do think I went through bullying just before that. I went through puberty and basically I didn't stand a chance, and I got this, unfortunately. It is often thought of as an OCD, so whether the OCD is caused by the things I've mentioned previously or just comes about on its own. Some people just have OCD because they've got OCD, there's no particular reason for it. And genetics, so they do think that genetics might play a role in it. For example, both of my parents, neither of them have trich, but they both play with their hair quite a lot, especially my dad. And again, that could be genetically have come down to me and just amplified quite a lot. So it could be to do with genetics, like sometimes it runs in families, but it could just be coincidental, so they're not 100% sure. And lastly, treatments. So there's no cure. It's not like having, you know, an infection and taking antibiotics for it. It's nothing like that. But there are ways that you can reduce it or just make yourself feel a bit better about it and things like that. So it has to be a combination of all these things. Not one of these things alone will help you stop it. So what I'll say first and foremost, the best thing you can do is accept it. Now, accepting it doesn't mean giving up or just saying, right, well, this is it, I'm going to have this forever. Accepting it means you accept that it's a part of your life and you may experience these urges forever, but you're still going to try, if that's what you wish to do, at reducing the side effects. The other good things you can try include cognitive behavioural therapy or counselling in general to help on the emotional side of things. Like I say, it is quite often caused by some sort of trauma, or if you're generally anxious anyway. And to be honest, I'd recommend CBT for pretty much everyone these days. In this modern world we're in, most of us have experienced mental health problems at some point, and CBT is really, really good, especially if you don't have someone that you feel you can talk to in your personal life. And remember, these people are professionals and everything will be confidential. Here in the UK, you can go onto a waiting list for NHS CBT. It can be quite a long waiting list because, as you imagine, there are a lot of people on the list. So if you can afford it, there are options. I mean, I know for a fact from personal experience, you can find a cognitive behavioural therapist online locally, or, you know, via video calls, considering the current pandemic, and be seeing them the next day, because when you pay privately, they'll be prepared to pay upwards of 50, 60, 70 pounds per hour for things like that. And there's medication. There isn't a medication for trich, not that I'm aware of anyway, but you could try, you know, medicating the other things that you might be experiencing in your life. So antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication, basically. Obviously, this is just a discussion with your doctor. It's nothing to do with me. But if you pull more when you're anxious, or you think it's caused by anxiousness or trauma, then maybe medication would be something you'd like to try. And the last one, which I haven't tried myself, I don't think it's very common though, probably one of the most effective things you can do is habit reversal training, which I've heard of, because I think it's a bit niche, and again, there aren't that many people out there who've come out as having trich, so, you know, people haven't developed ways around it, and that's why it's not out there. But I guess this would involve just training your body to do other things instead of that habit. So I'm not exactly sure on the specifics, but if you could look into trying habit reversal training, maybe you could research it online. In terms of the barriers to stop you pulling, so that's more about like the emotional side of trich. You could always cover your hair. So when I don't have my hair system, like my toppers or wigs on, I always have, I'm trying to look for it now, I always have like a sort of light scarf or bandana or something covering my hair. And even though of course you could just take it off to get to your head, you don't tend to, and that's a great barrier. There are things that you could use on your fingers, like cover your fingers, put plasters on them, or buy those like grips that you use to turn pages on Amazon. You could put like Vaseline on your fingers, though I don't think that'll last very long. So just basically putting a barrier between you and your head or your eyelashes, eyebrows, wherever you pull from. And I have done a video on that previously in my Instagram account about like things you can that will help you reduce trich in that sense. So that's kind of just a very vague overview of what trichotillomania is. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm willing to answer anything, I'm happy to. I've made this video in the light that I think I'm going to be sharing it on my personal account, which is very nerve-wracking for me, but I just want you to know I'd like you to contact me with questions. I don't want you to just ignore this video if you don't want to. If you want to ask me something, I'm not like ashamed anymore. So yeah, just feel free. And it was nice to be on front of camera again, and I'll see you soon. Bye.